A velvet ring box opens under the glow of city lights. Ethan Cole stands in front of his mirror, jacket on, words rehearsed, nerves barely under control. Chloe, you've been my home for 4 years, and I don't want another year or another season. I want a lifetime. He stops, exhales, gives himself a tight laugh. Then his phone buzzes, unknown number. He glances down. Don't propose tonight. She's not who you think she is. His face tightens. A second message appears almost instantly. If you ask her before midnight, you'll regret it. For a second, it feels like the whole room goes silent around him. He stares at the screen, then locks the phone and slips it into his pocket. Too late. By the time Ethan reaches the rooftop bar, the whole place looks like a Valentine's fantasy built for expensive mistakes. Music, champagne, candlelight, polished people pretending their lives are perfect. His best friend Noah is already there, watching Ethan pace like a man heading toward either marriage or disaster. You look like you're about to propose, Noah says, leaning back in his chair, or confess to a murder. Ethan shows him the message. Noah reads it, eyebrows lifting. Well, that's unsettlingly specific. You think I should cancel? Noah hands the phone back. No. If your relationship can be destroyed by one anonymous text, then it was already dying. You just hadn't heard the monitor flatline yet. Ethan gives him a look. Noah shrugs. What? I'm trying to be supportive in a clinically disturbing way. Despite himself, Ethan almost smiles. Noah points toward the private dining area. Go, before you lose your nerve. And for the record, that should be the end of the night. But it isn't. Because the next morning, in another part of the city, Ethan's mother Evelyn is sitting in the back of her car when her wallet slips unnoticed from the seat and lands near the curb. A young woman in scrubs spots it immediately. She's tired, carrying coffee, clearly coming off a brutal shift, but she runs after the car anyway. Wait, excuse me! The driver brakes. Evelyn lowers the window, startled, and the young woman holds up the wallet. This fell out near the light. Evelyn checks it quickly. Cards, ID, everything intact. Oh my God, thank you. The young woman smiles, simple and warm. I'm just glad I got to it first. You could have kept it. I could have, she says, but then I'd have to live with myself. That answer hits Evelyn harder than expected. What's your name? Grace. Evelyn smiles. That fits. Grace gives a polite nod, then turns and heads toward the bus stop before Evelyn can say another word. Evelyn watches her leave longer than necessary. Something about that girl stays with her. Back at the Cole house, Liam is stretched across the sofa, arguing that a Porsche would be a valuable educational investment in his future. It teaches discipline, he insists, and geometry. Evelyn doesn't even look up. It teaches speeding and entitlement. Those are also life skills. Then Ethan walks in. He looks composed enough to fool strangers, but Evelyn sees through him instantly. You're late. Long night. Liam glances between them and, for once, keeps his mouth shut. Evelyn studies Ethan carefully, then chooses not to press. Instead, she says, I met someone this morning. That sounds ominous. A girl. She returned my wallet. Didn't hesitate. Didn't take a thing. Liam sits up. So, honesty survives civilization. Evelyn ignores him. Her name was Grace. Ethan doesn't react much, but the name settles somewhere quietly inside him. So, integrity still exists, he says. Evelyn answers without missing a beat. Rarely, which is why you remember it when you see it. That same evening, in a small apartment across town, Grace is cooking dinner while sorting overdue bills and pretending not to be exhausted. Her father, Frank, sits at the table in his work shirt, still smelling faintly of oil and engine grease, an inhaler close by. He looks like the kind of man who has spent his whole life fixing things while slowly falling apart himself. "You promised you'd cut back at the garage," Grace says. "I promised I'd try. That doesn't count." He smiles faintly, but the smile doesn't last. "You shouldn't have to carry this much," he says, watching her move between stove, sink, and stack of bills. Grace doesn't stop. "We carry what we have to." A knock comes at the door. When she opens it, Noah is standing there with that same awkwardly charming expression that suggests he's about to say something ridiculous and possibly life-changing. "I come bearing bad timing," he says, "and a conversation that may or may not ruin everyone's week." A little later, Noah is sitting with Ethan, filling him in. Her name's Grace Miller, works 2 jobs, helps her father keep the apartment and garage alive. My cousin knows the family. Ethan looks unimpressed. "You're trying to set me up 24 hours after public humiliation?" "No," Noah says. "I'm trying to remind you the world still contains decent people. I'm not looking for anyone." "Good," Noah replies. "That's usually when your life gets rude enough to change anyway." Ethan leans back, tired. "If this goes anywhere, which it won't, there will be no money talk, no status talk, nothing transactional." Noah points at him. "Excellent. Growth. See? Emotional damage suits you." Neither man notices at first that Victoria Cole is standing just beyond the doorway, listening. And that is the moment things take a darker turn. Because before Ethan or Evelyn can properly meet Grace's family, Victoria gets there first. She arrives at the Miller apartment dressed like wealth itself, polished, precise, smiling with no warmth in it at all. Grace, Frank, and Helen sit across from her, trying to understand why a woman like this is in their home. Victoria looks around the apartment, taking in every crack in the wall, every compromise life has forced onto the place. "Let me be direct," she says. "Ethan comes from a certain world. That world has standards." Frank sits straighter. "We may not be rich, but my daughter is educated, honest, and more capable than most people twice her age." Victoria gives a thin smile. "I'm sure she is, but marriage at that level isn't only about affection. It's about fit." Grace's expression hardens. "Say what you came to say." Victoria opens a leather folder and slides a document onto the table. "The family requires a wedding contribution, $150,000. Consider it proof that your family won't become Ethan's burden." For a second, nobody breathes. Helen goes pale. Frank blinks, unsure he heard correctly. Grace just stares. "Are you asking us to pay for approval?" she says. "I'm asking whether you understand the reality of the world you're trying to enter." Frank swallows his pride so hard it almost breaks him. "We don't have that kind of money." "Then perhaps," Victoria says, rising smoothly to her feet, "this ends before anyone embarrasses themselves." Grace's voice cuts sharper now. "Did Ethan send you?" Victoria pauses, just long enough to wound. "Ethan doesn't concern himself with these details. Women like me do." Then she leaves, and the silence she leaves behind is even crueler than her words. Frank doesn't say much after that. That's what makes it worse. The next day, he's in a small credit office, hunched over loan papers, trying to bargain with numbers that were designed to crush men like him. The loan officer taps the documents. Based on your equity, we can offer 100,000, not 150. Frank's hand trembles. Please, I just need enough to keep this moving. This is the best you'll get. He looks at the papers, apartment, garage, everything tied to a decision made in desperation. Then he signs. By the time Grace finds out, it's already too late. Frank calls Victoria that night on speaker. Helen stands nearby in tears. Grace listens, frozen. I managed 100,000, Frank says, humiliation thick in every word. I can arrange the rest later. Please don't end this over money. Victoria's reply comes cold and clean. If your family cannot meet expectations before the wedding, it certainly won't after. This conversation is over. The line goes dead. Helen breaks down. Frank just stares ahead, emptied out. Then Grace reaches over, picks up the phone, and says with a calmness more dangerous than rage, "No, this is over because they wanted a price tag, and we refused to become one." Frank can barely look at her. I put the apartment up for this. Grace turns slowly. What? His eyes fill with shame. I thought I was securing your future. Now she's the one struggling to breathe, but instead of crying, she kneels in front of him and takes his hands. You were trying to protect me, she says. They're the ones who should be ashamed. The next day, things get worse. Frank goes to the bank to cancel the loan. The manager flips through the paperwork and says, almost casually, "There's an early closure penalty, administrative fee, and recovery charge. You'll need to return the principal plus 12,000. Frank stares at him. 12,000 for what? That's policy. I signed this yesterday. And yet, the manager says, here we are. Frank's breathing turns uneven. Grace steps in at once. You trapped him in a loan he took under pressure, she says. And that is when Ethan hears her voice. He's in the building for a completely unrelated meeting with legal counsel. He turns and sees Grace for the first time. Really sees her. She recognizes him too, but not the way he hopes. The look she gives him is sharp, wounded, accusing. What's going on? Ethan asks. Frank looks away, embarrassed. Nothing that concerns you. Grace steps forward. Your family demanded money. My father mortgaged his life to meet it. Now the deal is dead, and the bank wants more to undo the damage. Ethan goes still. What did you just say? Don't pretend you didn't know. I didn't. The truth in his face is so immediate, it unsettles even her. Who made the demand, he asks. Grace doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Ethan already knows. When he gets home, the explosion is instant. Victoria's in the drawing room having tea like she didn't just wreck another family's life. Evelyn looks up first, sensing the storm in Ethan before he says a word. What happened? Ask her. Victoria sets down her cup with annoying composure. If this is about the Miller family, I saved you from a mistake. You extorted them. I protected this family. You demanded 150,000 from a sick man. Victoria doesn't flinch. I made sure the woman who marries you can stand beside your name without collapsing beneath it. Ethan steps toward her, his voice dropping into something cold enough to scare everyone in the room. You do not protect this family by humiliating people. You protect it by knowing the difference between value and price. Victoria rises now too, no softness left at all. You're naive. No, Ethan says. I was naive when I thought cruelty only came from strangers. Evelyn looks devastated. I didn't know. Ethan turns to her, gentler. I know. Then he looks back at Victoria. But from this moment on, nobody speaks for me. Not on marriage, not on money, not ever again. Victoria lifts her chin. If you walk away from class, class will not walk away from you. Ethan gives her one last look, then let it chase me. Within hours, he's back at the bank, this time with legal counsel. The same manager who sounded so confident before is sweating now. Ethan sits across from him, calm in the way powerful people are calm right before they ruin careers. A same-day cancellation, Ethan says, with a predatory penalty tied to distress leverage. That isn't policy. That's exposure. The manager tries a weak smile. Mr. Cole, I'm sure this can be resolved privately. It will be, Ethan says. You're going to void the penalty, reverse the fees, and release Mr. Miller's collateral today. A pause. The manager hesitates. Ethan leans forward slightly. Or I take this public, and your board spends the next quarter explaining why your bank profits from desperate families. That ends the conversation. By sunset, Ethan is standing outside Grace's apartment holding the release documents. When Grace opens the door, she doesn't smile. She doesn't invite him in. She just waits. The loan's cleared, Ethan says. The apartment and garage are no longer tied up. He hands her the papers. She takes them, scans them, and for the first time, her composure cracks. Not because she trusts him, but because she didn't expect him to move this fast. Frank appears behind her. When he understands what's happened, relief rushes through his entire face. I don't know how to thank you. Ethan shakes his head. You don't thank someone for fixing a fire their own house started. Frank steps back, overwhelmed. Now it's just Ethan and Grace again. You could have sent a lawyer, she says. I thought about it. Then I realized apologies shouldn't be outsourced. That almost gets through to her. Almost. You still came from that world. Yes, he says, but I don't belong to its worst parts. That's easy to say when you can leave. He nods, accepting the hit. Maybe, but I'm not here because I feel sorry for you. Grace raises an eyebrow. I'm here because I respect you. My mother told me about the woman who returned her wallet. No hesitation, no reward, just principle. Then I saw what you did for your father in that bank. Most people break quietly. You didn't. Grace says nothing, and that silence matters because it means she's listening now. I'm not asking for trust tonight, Ethan continues, or forgiveness. I just didn't want you to think I was the man who put a price on your family. Grace looks down at the papers, then back at him. That depends, she says. Are you the kind of man who would have stayed silent if you never found out? The question hits exactly where it should, and instead of dodging it, Ethan tells the truth. I don't know, and that's what scares me most. That honesty lands deeper than any apology. For the first time, Grace doesn't shut the door. They walk forward into the city lights together. And for the first time in the entire story, nobody is looking back.